Hey, hi there, guys. Good morning. Warren here. So, it's a beautiful day here. You probably can hear the birds. You probably can hear my neighbors and the kids playing next door. I'm outside with the pup. And I was thinking, man, it is a beautiful day. And then I was thinking, I want more beautiful days like this. I hope for more beautiful days like this. And it also had me thinking about our environment. And I am not, how should I delicately put this? I don't approach the topic of the environment from any one perspective. And it's kind of, lately anyway, it's kind of like religion and politics. It just seems to set people on fire. So I don't really take a side. I understand that our reliance on fossil fuels will not end overnight and can't really. And I'll get into, although some of us, as they say, speak through both sides of our mouths, the politicians, some of the environmentalists that, and there is and the reason I don't touch it also is because there is enough, and I'm not going to mention any particular science either, because there is enough science, credible science, just as there is the opposite out there about what is going on. But what I want to talk about is that we're all guilty here. And we can say what we want about what we should do. What I do know is that we are running out of fossil fuels. And again, the science is there to prove this, okay? It's pretty basic science. Oil is produced from fossils from millions of years ago under pressure, heat, over time. That's how it was produced. That process is not happening anymore, okay? So it is not renewable, and it's not, I am not in the earth's crust or under the ground, so I don't know if it's continuing. But what is there and is happening is all there is. How about that? That is all there is. And then there's the other side. Renewables alone won't fix it either. There, I said it. But the politicians kick it around and use it as a political football, and then the non-critical thinkers among us who have sold our souls to the internet also will put out mis and false information about what is really going on to suit their agenda. And I told you, I don't have one. It's just the facts. And I wanted to take it from a perspective where I hope that it will leave whoever watches this just to think about it. We're all guilty here, and so guilty that I'm arguing that we are not willing to not be guilty because of the things I'm going to talk about. The losses if we were to stop using fossil fuels today or tomorrow. Zero. No more. The first one that I think would drive everyone that's already so impatient about everything else and so unkind to each other about everything else is the loss of the power grid, which, newsflash, is driven by fossil fuels. So you think about what is lost. You can't after you lose power to your cell phone from the last charge and you have no power grid to produce power and you can't communicate, and people start rioting, and people start to get on edge, and people get a little bit more emotional about things to the point where it leads to chaos. And that's just the power grid. How about the transportation grid? You can't catch a train. You can't catch a plane. Eventually, ships will stop sailing. There is no fuel for taxis or your own personal car. And sooner or later, that shuts down, and you can't get to the grocery store to get groceries or to go to work, and the chaos escalates. So I ask you, and I'm only on number 2, are you ready for that? And then there's the hypocrisy of usually those that lean more to the renewables. It is fine to renew, but not in my backyard. And what do I mean by that? Wind farms. They're not beautiful. They're unsightly. They're not beautiful. And they take up a lot of land mass where they're used on land. And then in the ocean, primarily off beautiful coastlines where some of the uber wealthy and some of who also think we should switch and completely live. And I say hypocrisy because they don't want that as their morning view while having coffee. We don't want that. I don't live somewhere that has that. There are pockets, but I don't have a view of that. But if I did, I'm not going to sit here and be dishonest with you. I would not enjoy that. So there's some hypocrisy and some on all our sides about these things that we say we should do, but I don't think we've thought about giving up. Then there are the industrial shutdowns, the factories that make everything that our fast-paced, all about me society depend on. The place that makes the plastics that make almost everything that we rely on, our cell phones, the bags we get groceries in, even if you have to pay for them, the packaging on, like I said, mostly everything we use. Industries. And then because the industries are shut down, now there is an economic loss because there are jobs that are lost. And the jobs that are lost are not from those mainly screaming for these changes. The jobs that are lost are from what people like to call the little guys. Those are who feel the pinch, the hurt first from the industrial shutdowns, the loss of jobs, because it's not the uber wealthy doing those jobs. And then loss of jobs exacerbates into loss of income, loss of food, loss of shelter, loss of clothing, loss of paying for amenities and school supplies. You see where I'm going with it? And that's why I said we are all to blame here. We're all at fault. Food and water disruptions. Just think of the breadbasket of America, California. They're already struggling with water issues. I lived out there for a period of time, and I think the entire time I was there, for the 3 years I was there, it was in the news every year, either being voted on as a political issue or just talked about among farmers. The loss of water, the unavailability of water for citizens and for these huge farms that feeds all of America and the world. Imagine those not being able to produce produce. And then the ones that can produce, what do you think they're going to do when the demand is high for something that is scarce? Well, what do you think happens to the price? And I'm asking rhetorically because you're smart. I know you know. They spike on the little guy who just lost his or her job from the factory that closed because it doesn't have fossil fuels to drive the machines that makes the products that keeps our world that we created and rely upon so much going. We're all guilty here. I talked about unemployment, but the financial markets eventually would crash because they're also driven by fossil fuels. And people can't get to work, so who's going to be there to be buying and selling and trading shares of commodities and bonds and stocks? Who is going to do it? So eventually those markets crash. And you see it, right? And I didn't want to make it seem and sound like a doomsday episode, because I also alluded to the fact that there are enough of those. There are enough of those people on both sides. I just want to highlight the hypocrisy from everyone, really. The ones that can do things to fix it, and I'll come around to things that I think we can do. And you probably already know them too. It's just that we don't necessarily want to. Choices, right? And I talked about the loss of amenities, just the basic me stuff that we all don't think about but rely on for our daily pursuit towards being happier. For some of us, that is our cell phones. As sad as that sounds. And I don't mean to pick on anyone, but for some of us, that's our cell phone. Just think of yourself without your cell phone for 15 minutes for some of us. I can go longer than that. I can go much longer than that, really, but this isn't about me. But the average person, and there are so many nuances to that. It's not just people are on their phones wasting time. There's that. But there are nuances to that. There are people who need to be on their phones. Their work is done over phones. But I mean, let's go to the ones that really matter at the end of the day, right? I'll talk about a couple of amenities that really matter at the end of the day. Maybe three. I alluded to food. But I'll just wrap up the examples with heat and cold. And at no more fitting time than what's going on throughout the South and the East Coast, the Northeast Coast and the Southeast Coast into the South, and across some of the Midwest with cold, places that's never seen foots of snow are seeing it. Cold temperatures that they've never seen. And I don't know why that is. I'll do my due diligence and research, because the cynic would go, oh, it was supposed to be overheating, so why are these places now being cold? Cynicism will get us nowhere. Critical thinking will, because I just admitted I'm not sure why it isn't that, and that occurs too, but most of what you hear is that that is what is occurring, right? And that there is less ice and snow. So this is part of why I think it should continue to be a conversation, but not a conversation of rhetoric and vitriol and violence and side taking, but genuine meet at a place of compromise. And that's where I think I want to wrap up, is start small. You're not going to fix the world, okay? We're not going to fix the world. The politicians are not going to fix it. At this point, talking about fossil fuels as if it's a thing of the past is just, it's not rational, okay? And surprise, surprise, renewables, wind only, and electricity that runs off of fossil fuel, less of everything, less of our individual footprints on everything. When we go out into the forest to do a little forest bathing, leave the plants alone. Don't uproot something because, I don't know, it looks pretty and you want to take it home. Take a picture. Take your trash out with you. Don't throw your plastics in the stream or in the river that is in the forest, because it eventually makes its way to the ocean. I mean, we know all these things. We know all these things. So it's not going to be the politicians, okay? And it's not going to be the uber wealthy or those really smart people among us that are also uber wealthy that are trying to do their part. And I'm leaving everyone nameless. But there are people among us that are doing things instead of just talking, that are doing things to help. I want to stop short of saying right this ship, because yes, we can't continue at the rate we're going, because like I alluded to earlier, I actually said it. Fossil fuels, there isn't any more coming, okay? What is underground currently, that's it. Unless we have another extinction, and that would be us. So it's not really as sciencey as some people like to use the term. It's really just critical thinking and understanding that we are all guilty here. All of us. You imagine your favorite cafe going out of business because it can't run the stoves to make your cappuccino. And your favorite piece of coffee cake to go with it. And I'm using those things because that's what I think about. There's a really cool place here where I live, and I'll leave it nameless too, but it's just, they have an avocado toast on their menu, and I get the thing all the time, like religiously. If it went out of business, would I be okay? Of course I'd be okay, but I'd be devastated for a while. It's just true, all right? We're all guilty here. We're all guilty here. But we can do our part, and that starts small. Care on purpose. Care on purpose. Don't just have the conversations, but care on purpose. And enjoy days like I'm having today, despite some of the background noise, but comes with the territory. It's life. But yes, if you enjoy all of what I talked about living and life, then just do your small part, and we'll be okay. We'll be okay. All the vitriol and the hyperbole and okay? Start small. Care on purpose. But we're going to continue to enjoy this afternoon under the trees here. Hopefully you can hear some of the birds. I'm probably just going to keep rubbing the pup. I don't know if she's in the shot, but you can stay as long as you want. But thanks for stopping by. And until our next conversation, you be good out there. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you later. Mama. We're going to enjoy this. What are you panting so crazy about? I think when we were recording, the gas man came by and filled the tank. I think that was what that truck noise was in the background. It was scheduled for today, so I think. So how about we go check? You want to go check and see if that is in fact what happened? All right, let's do it.